Seahawks Today, powered by Chat Sports. Tyler Jones here with you. Thanks for joining us. And for the first time ever, I get the chance to open up the mailbag and answer you guys' questions that you have for me as we're talking all things Seahawks. Plenty to get to on the draft, free agency, some possible trades, and looking ahead to 2022. So let's go ahead and get started with our first question. First in the mailbag this week comes from Nicholas White. Nicholas wants to know, obviously we need to build around DK. What does that mean for my man Tyler Jones? Nicholas, glad you asked, and I got to tell you, I am a huge DK Metcalf fan. I don't want to see this guy go anywhere. Look at the season he had last year. 12 touchdowns, close to 1,000 yards receiving, 75 receptions. He was terrific, and he's been great in his first 3 seasons in Seattle. And those numbers that we mentioned there are in spite of him not having Russell Wilson for a portion of this season. And I got to tell you, when I look at this Seahawks team and building for its future, it all starts with DK Metcalf. He is the future of the Seattle Seahawks. They have to do whatever it takes to give him an extension that makes it worthwhile for him to stay in Seattle for the foreseeable future. He is the foundation of this franchise. Build the thing around him. So, your turn, folks. Tell us, do you love DK Metcalf? Well, like this video if you do. And if you don't like this video, well, you're just a hater. That's how it is. So make sure to love and like the video. Prove it to show how much you care about DK Metcalf here on Seahawks Today. Next question in the inbox comes from Rondell Jackson. Rondell wants to know, if the Seahawks decided to trade Tyler Lockett, what do you think he is worth? I think early second, maybe late first. Now, Tyler Lockett had a really good year this past year, over 1,000 yards receiving, leading the Seahawks when it came to those receiving yards totals. And Lockett, if you recall, has been a guy that has gone under the radar. Remember, he wasn't a high-profile pick by any stretch of the imagination. And then when DK Metcalf came in, he kind of stole the spotlight a bit. But you know, in the case of Lockett here, I think that you're talking about a guy that is getting closer to the back end of his prime now. I think if you can get a second-round pick, if you decide to trade for him, I think you would be pretty pleased with that. But in all honesty, I'm not looking to trade Tyler Lockett at this point. I think what you have to do for this team moving forward, if they're going to compete for playoff positions in the future, you need to have both Lockett and Metcalf as your top receivers for this team. So, tell us, will Seattle keep Lockett and Metcalf? This is our pinned comment in the comments section. So, here's your chance to chime in and tell us. Type Y for yes, N for no if you think Seattle will keep both receivers going forward. We thank Rondell for giving us that question there. Next in the inbox, we are continuing to talk about receivers with this question from Batman Fan 20 Batman. What percentage chance do the Seahawks sign Julio Jones and Stephon Gilmore? Gilmore, obviously a defensive back. I don't think those chances are very high that Seattle ends up with either Jones or Gilmore, and here's why. You look at this free agency period for the Seahawks, and they have not been big spenders. They've done a good job of keeping their own guys, but you haven't seen this team really get the paycheck out for these big-name players from other teams. So for Julio Jones, a guy that is coming off a season that wasn't so great with high expectations in Tennessee, 10 games, over 400 yards and just 1 touchdown. And then Stephon Gilmore, who this past season played in 9 games and didn't really meet expectations for what Carolina had hoped after bringing him in from New England. I would put the percentage chance that they bring in either guy not very high. I would give it about a 15% chance that the Seahawks end up with either Jones or Gilmore at this point. And you know, what it comes down to is they have just lacked aggression in free agency. We did our grades earlier, and you can check out that video if you haven't seen it already. I won't spoil it for you. But I made a point in that video of telling you how well I liked what they did with paying to keep guys, but they just have not done a good job of going out there and finding big-time free agents and willing to get the paycheck out for those guys. I wouldn't expect that to change. Now, we have a great deal for you. If you're a Seahawk fan, you got to wear it, right? Well, there's some great gear from our friends at Fanatics. Log on to chatsports.com/Seahawks hats, where you can get hats and beanies for up to 30% off. What a deal. Look at these things. That camo looks really good. I'm not much of a camo guy, but I might have to pull that off. We have some other items for you. Look at that retro Seahawks hat. That logo looks really good. And the beanies, folks, man, the Trooper hat right there, that's got some swag to it. That's got some style. So, the Seahawks, I got to tell you, folks, have some of the best gear in the NFL. Those colors, the way they work with, why would you not be wearing that Seahawks gear around? Here's your opportunity to do so. Chatsports.com/Seahawks hats, 30% off, and you get some free shipping involved too. Don't want to miss out on it. Chatsports.com/Seahawks hats. All right, next question in the inbox. This comes from Javier L. Who is your preferred pick at number 9? Well, the Seahawks, just a week or two ago, were not expecting to have a first-round pick. Now, not only do they have a first-round pick, they have a top 10 pick. And as we look at the board here are the Seahawks' top draft targets. And Kayvon Thibodeaux, probably not going to be available, but he's one of those, if he falls a couple slots and ends up available at 9, you have to take him. He is quite the impact player, former 5-star recruit, All-American. Just a while back, a few months ago, there was talk about him being the number 1 overall pick, but he slipped up some draft boards since then. But nonetheless, if you can keep him in the Pacific Northwest, that would be a great first option. Charles Cross, I think, is the more likely pick for the Seahawks, as they have a real need on that offensive line, and he could be a day one starter at that left tackle spot. Couple good cornerbacks with Ahmad Gardner from Cincinnati, Derek Stingley Jr. from LSU, and then another offensive lineman, Tyler Linderbaum from Iowa. You got to love those big hog mollies from Iowa, and he could be another one that fits in real well. So let's ask you guys now. In the comments, let me know, who should the Seahawks draft? I say Kayvon if he's available. If not, can't go wrong with drafting an offensive lineman in that spot with Cross there. So let us know what you think in the comments. We'd love to hear from you. Who should the Seahawks draft? Tell us. Next question in the inbox comes from Devin Z. Clips. Devin wants to know, which corner would be a better pick at 9 for Seattle, Gardner or Stingley? Now, here's the thing. Devin, I think that Stingley is the better cornerback. I like him a little bit more than I do Gardner. I think they're both very good players. Stingley played against much tougher competition in the SEC as opposed to Gardner, who did it in the American Athletic Conference. I think Stingley's more ready to face that NFL competition day one than Gardner is. But with all that being said, don't waste a high pick on a cornerback. You can wait till later to get a cornerback, or the free agency market. Look what the Seahawks did with finding some good discount corners there. That's just not a position that I like to spend a whole lot of money on, or a position that I like to draft high on. The Seahawks do have a lot of needs, especially on that defense, but that cornerback position is not priority number 1 for me. I wouldn't draft either one of those guys at that spot, but if you made me pick one, I would lean towards Stingley there. Seahawks Today by Chet Sports is available each and every day right here on YouTube. Make sure to subscribe to Seahawks Today, youtube.com/Seahawks TV, and you can also hit the red sub button below, and we would certainly appreciate it if you do so. We would love to get to 30,000 subscribers very, very soon, And make sure to turn those notifications on. You want to be one of the very first people to know when the Seahawks make a big move. And we'll break it all down for you. There's no better place than right here on Seahawks Today by Chat Sports. Another question, this one in the inbox from GBK Hawk. He wants to know, if Kenneth Walker is available in the third round, do we take him? I get we don't need a running back, but he is so good. And Hawkman, you are absolutely right about that. Kenneth Walker was arguably the best running back in college football this year. Michigan State loved what they saw from Kenneth Walker this year as that team took a big step, largely in part because of his play on the field. But you got some offensive line issues, and I don't know how much of an impact Kenneth Walker can be when you already have Chris Carson there along with Rashad Penny, how much playing time he would get in that mix and how effective he can be when you don't have a great offensive line in front of him. So something to think about there. Kenneth Walker, if he's available in the third round, maybe you do. I like him, but I don't know if he's necessarily going to be available when the Seahawks pick there in the third round. Another question for you. This is our last one of the day. It comes from Mega Triumph 1. And the question is, why can't the Seahawks build the biggest, baddest O-line in the NFL? Pete knows fans like watching Penny get to the secondary. Well, that's a great question. And, Seahawk fans have been wondering that for a long time. Why has the offensive line not been that great? And in all honesty, the Seahawks have just not prioritized it. They spent so much money on Russell Wilson that there was gaps that went all along this team. The defense, the offensive line all suffered once Russ got his second contract. Now, going forward, with not spending that money on Russ, that you get to spread the wealth out a bit, I would expect the Seahawks in the coming months to really try to work on that offensive line, and the draft will certainly be one of those options. So I'll tell you this much. There are better days ahead for this offensive line. Thanks for joining us on this Mailbag edition of Seahawks Today.